Hey everybody, this is Stream, today we have a two-game WNBA slate for you. Before I get started, you can guys smash that like and subscribe button. We absolutely dominated yesterday. Hopefully everybody did well. Let's go ahead and get another big win today. Let's look at this slate. So we feature two games, Atlanta, Connecticut. Now, Connecticut's one of the best teams in the WNBA. Atlanta's got some injuries. The big injury is Howard for them, and that really limits them some. And then not only that, but Connecticut's one of the better defensive teams on the slate. Atlanta's going to struggle here, it looks like, probably pretty intensely. Then for the Las Vegas versus Phoenix game, or sorry, LA Sparks, excuse me, not Las Vegas, versus Phoenix. This game does feature a nice advantage to Phoenix as well. And of course, they look like they're pretty much at full strength, whereas the Sparks have a ton of injuries today. Brink, Brown, and and Stevens are all out, as well as Clarendon. So we have a lot of injuries there, but that does give us some utility with bench with got ladies who don't typically play a lot. So let's go ahead and get into the slate here. We're gonna go team by team. So we're gonna start with Connecticut. Now Connecticut is gonna probably win this game. The big issue here is they're just really pricey as a team. In fact, all four teams on the slate are a little bit overpriced. So that is a little bit of concern here. But they have one of the best players on the slate, which is Alyssa Thomas for Connecticut here at 11,300. She's also pretty expensive. Now, she doesn't have the highest of ceilings for players that are this expensive, which is a little bit of disappointing. She can definitely have those big games. In her one game against Atlanta so far, she did score 41 fantasy points. I do expect her to get somewhere in that range. She doesn't. I do think that she's pretty safe, considering the fact that I think she'll score around that, which is she needs 39 fantasy points to pay off here. So she has a nice upside, and she's definitely worth a look here, as she is one of the few players on the slate that has some decent double potential. She's not super consistent at it, but she gets peripheral stats a lot, which really helps fantasy. She's not the best scorer, but that doesn't matter here. She can score enough and get a lot of rebounds and assists, especially in this particular matchup, to pay off here. Now, the one game that she did play against Atlanta so far this season, she actually got a double double with rebounds and assists. So that definitely makes an interesting situation. Looking at Bonner for Connecticut as well, she's also a GPP play today. She has a very inconsistent lately, but she definitely has some ups and downs. Though the scoring is she is somewhat scoring dependent for fantasy, even though she is a rebounder. When she gets double figures in points, she typically has a pretty solid outing, but because she does shoot some shots, but she's just not a great shooter at times, and so depending on how her shots go down, that's going to determine what kind of fantasy output she has. But she does have favorable upside today because at this price point, so she's definitely worth a look as a GPP play. But she is very GPP oriented today. Most of the rest of the team players, I'm probably going to ignore for the most part. The only one that I think has some utility is Taisha Harris, but she's kind of risky on the slate. Looking at Atlanta, the team they're playing against, there's not much anything here to like on the slate. Tina Charles is the only one that projects even reasonably well, and she's pretty pricey considering other players at this price point are a lot safer. And so I think Atlanta is a pretty avoidable team on the slate. If we look at the Phoenix uh, team, we have Brittany Griner here. Now she's only played a handful of games so far, only 6 games so far, but she's played pretty well in 4 of those, and then she's had 2 kind of rough games. If she can get closer to the double digits and rebounds, she's gonna have more upside, but she does need to score more points, and that's also been somewhat of an issue in 2 of these games. Though the minutes were a little bit inconsistent there as well. Her team should do pretty well here, so I think that she's gonna have some opportunity to have a really solid game, as the defense here is not going to be too difficult, and so I think she's got one of the better upsides on the slate. Very close to being a core play with her, but she isn't because she's a little bit pricey for her potential here. But she's in a really good situation, so she's definitely worth a look. Cloud for Phoenix also looking really solid today, uh, even though she's a little bit overpriced. Like I told you, everybody on the slate basically is. So she has some nice upside on this one, and her best game this year has come against the LA Sparks already, as they really do struggle defensively. I look for her to have another really solid game and have double-double potential with the assists again, which she does occasionally. Though she doesn't need to double-digit points, but she does need to get some of everything to pay off here. But she's definitely very capable in this matchup of that. Dana Tarsi is also a kind of a boomer bust play today only with GPP slash Hail Mary. She's got a high ceiling and a low floor, and she's kind of hit both a lot recently. So, though she did have a good game against Vegas before, or sorry, against the Sparks before, so I do think she has upside. But my gosh, she's been inconsistent with her minutes, inconsistent with her shooting, and inconsistent with peripheral stats and scoring. So, like last game, she scored 16 fantasy points, which would be way lower than we want. But she's also had some 40 fantasy point games lately, so she's got a high ceiling, low floor. So that's a boomer best play, Hail Mary type play on the slate. Then we're going to look at Vegas, at the Sparks. I can't believe I keep calling them Vegas. I'm sorry about that, guys. But anyhow, you know I'm talking about the Sparks here. Now, Hamby is their top player right now with all the injuries, and she's played well. She's even played well against Phoenix. She's had some really solid games, though. If we look at the last 3 games, she's really struggled. And, well, in the last 4 games, she struggled in 3 of these. Now, and the matchups, even though one of the matchups were really tough, I mean, going against Atlanta, she only 27 fantasy points. She needs almost 38 fantasy points to pay off here. And so she is a GPP play, but she definitely carries some risk because this matchup could get a little wonky here. I will note though that she had a pretty solid game against Phoenix the last time they played, but she shot the ball nearly perfect, and she is a little bit more scoring dependent at times than we'd like, and that does limit her fantasy output sometimes. So I think she's a good play, but I don't think she's a must play by any stretch of imagination at this price point. We can get some other players like Griner or Bonner, or even Thomas, who are a little bit safer than she is, but she's still a decent play on the slate. This is where we're going to get our core play for this particular slate, and that's going to be Stephanie Talbot. Oopsie, for uh, the Sparks here. Now, Talbot does have the best of matchups, and she's been inconsistent this season. However, she's playing more minutes because of all the injuries to this team, and so the last 3 games she's played 26 or more minutes. Her price has shot up as a result. And if we had looked through the season, she really hasn't played many games more than like 5 or 10 minutes. But she does tend to score, at least a little bit most games. And when she gets bigger minutes, she does have that capability. I think she's a solid option today because she gets rebounds, and I think she gets some assists today as well. And she does, if she scores some good amount of points. If she can get to double-digit points, she'll definitely be an easy payoff. But she needs 21 fantasy points to pay off here, and she's got really nice upside coming off the bench here. But she definitely has that utility on the slate, so she's definitely my favorite play on the slate when it comes to value. The other bench players like Lee Yuru, for them, Ray Burrell, Kia Nurse, and Zaya Cook all have utility today as kind of cheap options. I would rank them at Uriu, Burrell, Cook, and then Nurse. But Nurse is probably the weakest of these 4. She gets the most minutes of the 4, but she's also been the weakest. So they're Hail Mary plays, the 3 of them. But if we look at Uriu, sorry, I'm butchering your name. Her minutes a little bit inconsistent, but she definitely has been getting more usage as a result of the situation here. The question here is if she can score the points, because when she scores some points, she usually gets enough. She usually does okay. However, the peripheral stats are relatively low, so we do need her to score double-digit real points to pay off here. She's capable of that, but she's somewhat limited in the minutes, so she's kind of a high-risk play. But she is dirt cheap here. But I do think Talbot's the safest of this team. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.